could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You could have all you ever wanted, shoot the moon and reach for Mars. You know you could. Yeah, and times are changing everywhere. Do we dream and do we dare? It's up to you. The door is open wide. Feel the rhythm of today. Learn the part and join the play. The world is here. Let's take it for a ride. Hey, you could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You could have all you ever wanted, shoot the moon and reach for Mars. You know you could. Larger, larger than, bigger, bigger than, living hopes and dreams. Every boy and girl, higher, higher than, brighter, brighter than, all you wanted. You know, hey, you could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You can have all you ever wanted. Hopes and dreams, every boy. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You could have all you ever wanted. You know you could.
Good morning. Welcome back to the channel, Grand Colombia, and welcome to another Coffee Time Live here in Armenia, Colombia. I had this thing sitting weird, and it's, I don't know. Anyway. Couldn't make it last week. Nothing in particular. Are you sick again? Well, truth is, I wasn't feeling good for a few days, but I wasn't really sick. I take a medicine that about once a month or so, I feel like crap for a couple days, get a little fever. But it wasn't about that. I just need a break every once in a while. Come on, I don't take that many. Okay, so the weather today, right now, it's about 78 degrees, and let's see what it looks like. There we go. It looks a little more natural. Okay, high today of about 81. Going to be a little toasty out there this afternoon. And we'll have a low in the morning of about 62 degrees. And you probably won't see any rain until after dark. Now, for the bad news, our exchange rate for the last couple of days is just below the 4,000 mark. Okay. Okay, Dan. Glad you're here today. We would hate to fire you. Yeah. Yeah, but you know, it's always good to get rid of overpaid talent. All right. Let's see. I covered that. What happened this week? All my passport, all my visa stuff for my resident visa was done. But she got back to me and said, you sent me a photo from your last visa and I need one that looks different. Okay. So I had to go get a new photo. Excuse me. So I go yesterday because I had a lot going on. I go yesterday and I never got a photo here. I always got them in Pereira. So I look on Google Map and I go to the first one and they're closed. I go to the second one, they're nowhere around. It's like there's nothing like that here. So then I go downtown, can't find it anywhere. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. So I go to the fourth one, which probably should have gone to. It's right next to the Notary Public, where you usually find the photo places anyway. And sure enough, it was one there. Cost me 8,000 pesos. Excuse me. To counterbalance your 78 here, it's freezing rain, 10 inches of snow. Damn. Such a shame. So that was my big event yesterday. New things are popping up, but I'll wait till next week to show you some of those. I went to the coffee meeting Wednesday. Six of us, I think. As usual, it's pretty interesting. I was there a little over an hour. What else we got? All right, well, let's get right to the news stuff. You want to know what the topic is? It's not, I don't know if it's exactly a topic, but I want to discuss coffee. You know, they say this is the coffee triangle. Is there coffee anywhere else in Colombia? What's so I'm gonna talk about some things about Colombia and coffee. But let's go to the first what happens when you don't talk most of the week? All right, let me go to the first news item.
Work all night on a drink of rum. Daylight come and we want to go home. Stack banana till the morning come. Daylight come and we want to go home.
Yes, it was a lame excuse to put that little clip in there. I saw a thing about Beetlejuice, and when I think of Beetlejuice, I think of that. Anyway, our little town south of Armenia that we know and love, that Mike lived in for a while, it's called Pueblo Tapao. The first ever plantain festival is being held. So, you know, if you're here and you want something to do, run on out there. Speaking of, if you're on here, you didn't say good morning yet, you're usually lurking. I want to point something out. It's your turn, buddy. We're both looking like shag dogs. I got my hair cut while I was out yesterday. Okay, so next one. This one's pretty cool. There's still some Colombia left in Colombia. And my next story is to be, okay, so we're losing some Colombia, but this one, it's pretty cool. Municipal slaughterhouses will be revived. What's happening, and this was just yesterday, but I understand it's already been approved in some of the departments. Cattle slaughtering was steered towards a couple large national companies under the guise of, we have more control over the quality and safety. Okay, but the truth is, if the meat's crap, then you might as well cook the hell out of it, and then it's going to be safe anyway. And that's always been the theme for decades here in Colombia and throughout South America. That's why they typically will cut it really thin, and we're talking beef, we'll cut it really thin and they'll cook it to shoe leather. But it kind of sucks. I mean, so, okay, nutritionally you're getting something, but pleasure-wise, it's not the best. I mean, if it's going to be like that, you might as well go all the way and eat beef jerky. You know, at least that's yummy. Okay, so what they want to do is slaughterhouses of old, before they had this brilliant idea to almost nationalize, they're not, they're private companies, but it threw a bunch of them out of business. So, for example, for Candio, we'd have one located, I think it was in Circassia, to tell you the truth. I think it was in Circassia. And that serviced Candio and all the local ranchers, which is not a lot of them here, but they would bring them in. Plus, you could purchase them and bring them in. They would slaughter them locally, and the other upside is you're getting stuff that's pretty fresh. So it worked in the past. They got away from it, and the thinking now is they're trying to find ways to help people's budget. There's not a lot they can do about this basically worldwide inflation. But when they nationalize, I shouldn't say that. They didn't nationalize it, but you know what I'm saying. We'll say centralized. It's not run by the government. But when they did that, prices got a lot more expensive. You're getting a lot more transportation. You've got a layer of inspectors. Well, you'll still have inspectors, but it'll be part of the slaughterhouse operation. And plus, when you only have a couple for the country, that tends to monopolize, and you kind of lose control of market forces. And so the cost of beef has been creeping up. So they figured, well, if we go back to the local slaughterhouses, it's going to be more competitive. It's going to be more local. It'll serve the people locally, which maybe got squeezed out a little bit when they got far away. So I think it's a brilliant idea. I looked up the document on it, and it doesn't have Petro's signature on it anywhere, but it does have the Minister of Agriculture, and it's 4 or 5 signatures. It's been signed off on by the president of Candio. So I think we're going to see it pretty soon. So that's pretty cool. I didn't cover the chats here. Yuka, thank you. And greetings from Finland. And last week, Yuka, even though you knew that I wasn't going to be on, you still sent a contribution. I very much appreciate it. Turtle, Bucaramanga, checking in. Don't you just love that? Bucaramanga. Congratulations on your new place. He was thinking he was going to move away from Bucaramanga because housing is jumping way up, but he found a huge place actually for less money. So apparently he's happy now. Jerry, thank you for your contribution. Rob, good morning from Fort Lauderdale. How you doing, Rob? Mr. Sawicki, morning from Seattle. Curmudgeon Capitalist, good morning from North Carolina on the coast. Ben Lake, I know who you are. Good morning. Nice conversation I had. I enjoyed it. Michael Meyer, good morning from Los Angeles. Dan, glad you're here today. I hate to fire you. Got that one. Counterbalance, got that one. Tommy Adams, my wife and every Colombian I know in Northeast Georgia all get well done steaks. It's changing. A lot of things are changing. That's what happens in life. But yeah, you grew up on a beef farm, so we had our fresh beef. I think local beef is the way to go. I have to agree. I think it was a brilliant idea. I couldn't find who actually came up with the thought, but the thought was thoughtful in a number of ways. It's I'm sure these monopolized national operations are not going to be happy about this at all, but too bad, right? I mean, they got basically a free ride for a while. And I don't know, good idea. Good morning from the Villages, Florida. Good morning, Gary. You still haven't told me if it's AI or LL. Good morning, everyone. Just to remind you, the minimum salary Colombia 2023 is 1.6, and the monetary requirement for tourist visa now is 10 times the minimum salary. You mean for 2024? Because we're pretty much done with 2023. Yeah, and that's tourist visa. I think, well, there's different ones. Like, I think the pension visa is a different amount. 4 times, maybe? I don't know. I haven't looked at that recently. All right, let me get that off the screen. All right. Okay, so that was the beef. And now, this is a two-parter. First part, there's a campaign right now. Christmas lights it up without gunpowder is the name of the campaign. And they've actually got more Christmas lights all across the city than I've ever seen before. In the past, they were always sponsored. These, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Check resolution 5477 June 2022. Okay, but we're going into 2024. So whatever that is, good or bad, we've already talked about it months ago, and as a matter of fact, I was just reading that one 2 days ago, and we'll see what happens for next year. So anyway, last year, they do fireworks all over South America, and here's no different. You can see them pop off everywhere. And last year they had 16 people with pretty severe burns show up at the hospital over fireworks. And, what's a government to do if it's not to protect us from ourselves, right? And so this year they decided we're going to have gunpowderless lights this year. And I think that's why you see more out there and more that aren't sponsored. I think the local government is putting a lot of these up at taxpayer expense, where in the past it was always a sponsored. You could see there would be a little sign sponsored by Total Chuleta, for example. So that was pretty cool. I always admired that. And now this, and it's for people's safety. And to be fair about this, although it didn't happen last year, occasionally you'll get a fire started because of fireworks. It's not really a big thing here, but people getting burned kind of is. I think it has more to do with they get drunk and shoot them at each other sometimes. Okay, so there's that. Meanwhile, they seized hundreds of pyrotechnic elements that were transported on a motorcycle. Look at the load here in his picture. This was on one motorcycle. They pulled this thing over, and everywhere it could possibly be stuffed was fireworks. And that's the nature of Colombia. We're going to announce that we're going to crack down on fireworks, and it's going to be harder to get. And next thing you know, some entrepreneur decides to go buy all he can stuff into his little Honda and bring them into Armenia. Okay, so they got this one, and this is damn impressive. I don't know how, he got all this stuff, but he did, and I don't know. I had to kind of smile because, I don't know, it's kind of an inadvertent protest, I suppose. I'm going through getting the retirement visa. My lawyer told me it's 3 times. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Depending on the exchange rate. Well, the exchange rate is set each year. So it's not a moving target. It's set for each year. So for 2024, it'll be set, and throughout the year, that's what it's going to be. What is that? 700 to 800 a month. I don't know. It's always a relatively small amount. And here's the thing. Even though it goes up every year, so does your Social Security. And if you have retirement, other types of retirement, it tends to also. So it's not like, oh my God, you know, they're going to price me out. It's like, okay, maybe they go up, but so does yours. And that'll generally more than offset it. It seems like every year I gain ground. Let me put it that way. And this year is no different. All right. What's next? This one it's a little quirky. New type of robbery on public transport buses in Quindío. Now, I thought this sounds like there's a crime wave of some new type of thing happening on the buses. I mean, doesn't it kind of seems like that, right? Well, it turns out there was one, and they caught the guy when he jumped off the bus. But what happened is you enter the bus, like in this photo where this lady's getting on the bus. You enter the bus in the front, you get off the bus in the back, on the back side. You can't really see it, but if you go all the way back behind the windows, there's a double door. And there's kind of a steps down into a well as you wait to get out. Well, apparently what happened was this woman with her child, God knows why this child had his own cell phone, but he had a cell phone, and there was an older guy that was there next to him, and he started hacking and wheezing and coughing on him, and they were like freaked out, kind of backing up, and he used that moment to grab the cell phone, and he had it timed so he could jump out the door at the same time. But he got a few steps and got caught, because you don't need a policeman to catch a criminal here. All you have to do is holler and people will grab them, and we'll see. So I don't know. Maybe they're just saying, okay, we haven't seen this before, and so this happened, so just be aware in case it happens again. I read these headlines, and it just sounded like, oh man, we got a new crime wave now we got to pay attention to. And it's not exactly it. All right, so there's that. Something new for us, and if you've been flying out of the United States, I'm sure you've seen this. We now have the BioMig for foreigners. They've actually had it for Colombian citizens, but now for foreigners, where basically you go up and you put your ticket information in, and you scan and you put your face in the screen, and it just gives you a pass where, you know, when you go up to get on the airplane, get out of the airplane, you can just walk through. It's in Bogota and Medellin now, or so they say. However, I'm looking to say, and over the next few years, they're going to be spreading it out. I did find where they're saying that when the new terminal opens in Armenia, or Leiden, when that opens, it will be including this contraption. So that should make the process a heck of a lot quicker. So that's pretty cool. And I'll put it up here. You can always stop it. I don't have to leave this on the screen very long, but you'll notice it's in Spanish. This will be your chance to take your phone and put it on Google Translate and go to the camera on Google Translate, turn your phone sideways and hold it up to this, and you'll see it. If you're patient, move your camera a little bit, you'll see it all turns into English. So that's an assignment for you. Basically what it says, if you're going to come into Colombia, these are the things that will likely be checked. These are the things that are legally required, even though they don't always check everything. You want to make sure that your passport is current and valid. The exit ticket going out of Colombia, which can just be the itinerary that you didn't have to pay for. It could be a bus ticket. I've talked to a whole bunch of people, and I'm told over and over that they're never asked that when they come into Colombia. But print that itinerary anyway, just to be on the safe side. The next thing is that you've got no previous issues, such as overstay fines or something outstanding. Next one is the check MIG. It has to be done in 72 hours before your entry. And the one after that, this one's a little vague. Current health requirement. Well, the current health requirement is traveler's insurance. However, because it's vague, I can foresee that maybe COVID shot comes back. I doubt it with all the stuff they've learned, but it leaves openings for things like that. Man, can you guys hear that? Racing motorcycles. Got the window open a little so we can see that. Okay, and the very last one, what is that one? Whatever visa is required for the country that you're coming from. So if you're just coming in to visit, you get your 90 days in many countries, but some countries you actually have to have a visa ahead of time. Mike Jarvis, late, good morning all. Okay, Mike, since you weren't here, I'm going to do it again. I want you to check this out. It's called a haircut, Mike. Haircut. Live it, love it. Shag dog. Okay. Now for my sort of topic. And get your Q&As wound up. I don't think this will last very long. But it comes up all the time about the coffee triangle. And the reason they call it haircut every 6 months. Yeah, well, mine was 6 months too, and it was getting pretty bad. This is why they call it the coffee triangle, but it seems like there's so much misunderstood about it. It's not really a triangle, and it's not just Manizales, Pareda, and Armenia. Actually, throughout the Andes, all the way from the north of Colombia to the south of Colombia, there's coffee grown. As a matter of fact, everywhere that's over 3,000 feet, you'll find coffee grown, because the sweet spot for coffee is 3,000 to 7,000 feet. And the place that's supposed to be perfect is basically the height of Armenia or Quindío. So just around the 5,000 mark. Now, what this map doesn't show is if you move to the right just a little bit to give yourself kind of a slanted square, you've got Ibagué. And that's the fourth point in what's called the coffee triangle. But what is my point here? Well, I want to kind of give you a picture. Throughout Colombia, most of the coffee is commercial coffee. One of the largest producers of commercial coffee, it's in the top 5 in all of Colombia, is actually Caldas or Manizales. And that's where they have the largest coffee processing plant in the world, processing as in various types of instant and freeze-dried, things like that. I believe that's owned by Nescafe. And the coffee that's throughout that department or state is mostly funneled through that. Pretty good income because it's you'll see large expanses of coffee fields up the side of a mountain. It's huge areas there. And Parada Risaralda, it's similar in nature. It's not very well known for much of anything other than having coffee, but it's mostly commercialized. Condillo doesn't have that operation at all. Condillo is a small department, and the coffee farms that are here are also relatively small. They're almost exclusively generationally owned by families. And they've turned into, as coffee snobbery has exploded in the last decade, in Condillo, these farms have turned almost exclusively into these boutique coffee producers. They're definitely small producers. And you've got like Condillo Cafe, who has their Juan Valdez type places, chain operations of cafes. They're trying to do what some of these larger operations have done in other parts of Colombia. They're trying to organize Condillo. So you can buy Innova coffee with certain characteristics, or coffee from Pijao, and you can get them single origin coffees, or you can get their worst coffee, the gourmet blend. And I'm not a fan of blends. Instead of taking the highest of the highs, you end up with mediocrity. But it's their biggest seller, and the blends is they'll take it from different places and they'll put it together and average out whatever the acidity is and the fruitiness and all the things that go into that coffee. So you would think that in the difference of how it's operated here, and if you visit these farms and you see the gentleman who owns it, who's like the fifth generation of ownership kind of thing, how much they love what they're doing and how they, they'll say like the best chefs will cook with love. Well, you see that in these coffee farms. They're not just, some production thing. It's like part of the family. And they're struggling. I just had this conversation, but a lot of them are struggling. How do you keep them down on the farm? Their kids tend to be moving away for fame and fortune. It's like maybe they think they'll get rich off TikTok or something. And so there's a lot of them that are worried about what's going to happen in the future with their farms. But the ones here in Condillo have been dedicated to learn about coffee, not just growing the coffee, but what people are looking for, what makes a coffee great. And so there's been an intense desire to learn more about that side of that business. And they've been cultivating and experimenting, doing different things. For example, pretty much all the coffee you get, they take the bean and it gets washed off. And so they end up with just the coffee bean that you see, and then that gets roasted. You're seeing some that are leaving that on and drying it with it. And it gives like a fermentation to the beans. And then when they roast the beans and they turn the beans into coffee, there's a different flavor. And among world gourmets of coffee, they're finding that to be an exciting movement. And that's something that began here in Colombia. I can't say in Condillo, but I did read that it started here in Colombia. But it's something in Condillo they've been focusing on. So they're keenly aware that if they can make better coffee beans and become sought after, they can lose the middleman and make real money. And if they can make real money on the coffee, maybe they can keep their family business in business. And there's been movements for that. There's a few things the gentleman in Pihao I did a video on, I talked a little bit about. He supplied coffee for an operation, big operation, and they're from France. They went back to France and they were all talking about the coffee. They contracted with him. He now supplies a fair amount of coffee. It's a pretty big contract. And in France, the desire for his coffee has been growing. It began on a fluke, but it's growing. It was last year, they have these blind taste tests. And I believe it's like, well, I don't want to go through. There's a bunch of cups of coffee that you put up, and they're going to taste these, but they don't know whose is who. And then these coffee experts will vote. And one of the coffee makers here in Condillo won last year. I can't think of his name. It's Fink Alberto, I believe. I can't swear to that. Another thing is 21 or 22. Within the last year or two, let's put it that way. They'll have an international auction, and the base amount for coffee is $1, but it's typically begins at $5 when the auction bidding starts. The highest price for a pound of coffee ever was $31 a pound, and was a farm here in Condillo. So in other words, they're seeing the fruit of their labors start to show up. And yeah, I think it's pretty important. When you look at Manizales and Pereira, those departments, Risaralda and Caldas, they produce 4 times the amount of coffee here in Condillo. Condillo's small, it just doesn't have all of that. Now, something else came up. Somebody was looking for a farm. I only know of one that I talked to you guys about, and I had her on here. I don't really know much about farms. I've been to some, but as far as I knew, actual farms tend to be expensive. I don't mean like a little old house sitting on half an acre or something. I'm talking about, maybe 15 acres or larger, that you can grow things on. And it is not cheap. And I think they had the idea that, well, because it's in Condillo, it's probably cheap, like it's a backwater place. And the truth of it is, being at the perfect altitude, the soil is some of the best in the world, and there's a scarcity of land. It's not like, I want to go buy one today. I mean, it's not going to happen. So that keeps prices up. They're not cheap. Matter of fact, pretty expensive from what I've seen. And, so that got me thinking about all of this, that there's just a misunderstanding of what goes on. And last thing I want to say about this is the difference in Colombia itself. As I've told you a million times, I lived here 20 some years ago, and I was excited to get a cup of coffee. And so I'm at this house, invited there for lunch and a coffee. So I'm all excited. So I watch the mother make the coffee. She's got this beat up old pot, and she puts it on the stove, and she puts in a whole bunch of milk. And then she takes a panela, which is like raw sugar, brown kind of sugar, and she puts a bunch of that in there. And then she takes out her instant coffee and throws in a bunch of spoonfuls, stirs that up, and that was our coffee. It was mostly milk, and it was really sweet. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't really coffee. It was kind of like coffee flavored sweetened milk. So, yes, she does. Well, it's not a coffee farm. It's a farm. It's whatever you want. It has been. It was plantain. Last grown was yucca. They changed things up. So anyway, that was coffee back in the day. And when you went to the supermarkets, you didn't really find anything except instant coffee. I was really disappointed. I thought, it's like there really should be coffee here. And I didn't have a good coffee until I went to the amusement park, Parque del Café. It's an amusement park for coffee. And you get these theme animals. Well, they had a Juan Valdez and a donkey. And there was also like a coffee bean walking around. And there they had really good coffee. But in general, it was all exported because that was back when Colombia was dirt poor and they needed that money for export, and people here, for the most part, couldn't really afford it. Well, times have changed. And now, instead of having oversweetened milk with a touch of coffee in it, what you have people drinking now is mostly espresso or black coffee without milk or sugar. And when I invite locals here, I offer coffee, and it's almost always they just want it strong and black. Not strong like diner coffee. They expect the coffee to be good, but strong like espresso or somewhere near that. And what's surprising to a lot of people that come here and not from here is they'll ask for cafe americano thinking they're going to get, like diner coffee kind of thing. And what typically will happen either at the table or before it gets to the table is they'll put the coffee in the cup and then they'll serve it with a little pitcher of boiling hot water. And then you add the amount of water that you want to it. So you control the level of it. They may do that for you before it gets there, but that's kind of how they do it. So they'll brew the coffee as like espresso style, and then you add hot water to water it down. So the taste in coffee has changed dramatically here, and you can buy here everything. As a matter of fact, there's coffees that you can buy here that you cannot find anywhere else in the world, such as my favorite coffee. And I said that was going to be the last thing. One more thing. I was approached by somebody who watches this channel as a friend who has an export license, and he's going to move from one place to here possibly. And he ran the idea past me of, maybe I could advertise the coffee here, because people do ask, how can I get some of that coffee? And I told him I wasn't really interested because I don't really want to advertise coffee that I'm not drinking. I said, and while there's a number of coffees that are good that I'd be comfortable with, but I really only drink one coffee pretty much, at least at home. And, so I can't really recommend, this is the best, because in my opinion, the one that I drink is the best, which is why I drink it. Oh, then he threw a curveball. He says, well, what if we went there and negotiated with them and we branded it as Gran Colombia Coffee? Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. You guys want available, you that aren't here in Armenia, are you interested in having coffee drop shipped to you in the U.S. through a legal exporter? So I don't know. It was an interesting idea. I haven't given a lot of thought, but at the very least, I could certainly recommend it because it's my favorite. All right. That's it on the coffee thing. Do you have any questions? Where is it? Here we go. It's Q&A time. It's time to start asking your questions. Remember, 4 question marks first, then ask the question. So, I got no Bills game, but they've been running afternoon and evenings anyway. They're on a bye. Just they continue to keep giving me heart attacks. What ways, where we go? What ways can expats receive U.S. broadcasting such as Roku, Tubi, and so forth? Is a VPN needed? Well, Roku is not a broadcaster. It's a piece of software. Tubi, you can get Tubi here. Is a VPN needed? For some, yes. For some, no. I don't use those. I use, I brought this up many times. You can get Netflix, and Netflix will be suited for Colombia, which means there'll be some things in the U.S. version that are not available in Colombia. So for that, if you want all of those, you could use a VPN. That'll work. I have Netflix. I just never canceled it, but I don't watch it very often. But when I do, there's more than, I mean, there's so much. I don't know how many lifetimes it would take to watch it all. But one of the reasons I don't really watch Netflix much, I really should cancel it. It's just a waste of money. But I use Streamio. It's STREMIO.io. You can download the software, and you can get pretty much everything except live content. But if, for example, you watch Survivor, sometimes you have to wait a day or two, but it's available and you can watch it. So every week you could watch various shows that you like. It's absolutely free, doesn't get blocked or anything. They actually produce their content legally. I won't go into all the hows and whys, but they've been in business. I've been using them for about 9 years, and they've been great. Occasionally there'll be something that there's maybe not a good link for, but for the most part, if it's anything that I'm interested in seeing, I can watch it there. I watch movies. I have access to movies sometimes that are still in the theater. I just watched one which I thought was going to be terrible because I heard such bad things about it. And I tend to be a little cynical, and I don't like the way a lot of movies have been going, particularly the Disney stuff where they're trying to change everything that was good and it's sucking. However, this was a Disney, and I actually enjoyed it. It was the last Indiana Jones one. So I watched it. It was probably about a week after it came out. And so you have access to movies, TV shows, tons of things. You can watch YouTube things on there, and it's free. So that's what I use. I don't worry about VPN. And the problem with VPN is they work for a while, and then they don't. And then you have to go get another one, and then that one. When I was in Ecuador, I went through 5 different VPNs because they would work initially, and then they quit working. And the problem is, you have a subscription on those, and so you have to pay ahead. A lot of them you pay ahead a year, and after 3 months it wasn't working, or 2 months, or a month. I think I had one that didn't even last a month, and you don't get any refunds on them. So I think that's a good way to deal with it. All right, what do we got here? How about you have an affiliate contract with them? Let them do the hassle of shipping to the... Well, I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't do anything except mention it. They would take care of the Grand Columbia label or Coffee Time label or whatever. We didn't have that much of a conversation. It was just something that, well, maybe. Because I've been asked a lot, is there some way you can send me coffee? Well, I can't actually. It's not legal for me to mail it out like that. So, but if you have an export license, then of course you can. I would be interested in the coffee, depending on price and shipping. Yeah, we're far away from that. I'm just, as you can see, I'm just kind of maybe thinking out loud while I'm on here, because you see, I'm very much aware that you guys are sitting there watching me. I'm very much aware, not just from the chat, but I've been doing this long enough to know. I was asked, how do you get on there and with few notes or hardly ever looking at the notes, you go through all this stuff? Because for me, it's like conversation. It's just like, I'm just sitting here talking to you. And when I do videos like those last ones, you notice I was very uncomfortable. It was a whole different flow. I was kind of it's because you weren't there. So I'm not talking to you. It's not a personal conversation. Now I'm in front of a camera and I'm talking to a camera, and it's a whole different ballgame. It's one of the reasons I like doing these, because I know that you're there and there's live interaction, and then I get to meet you guys as you come through, so I can put a face behind it. And I've met a lot of very nice people. People that view this channel tend to be very nice people. So those, get away from me with those dolphin comments. Oh, there we go. Something wasn't working there. So that's that's kind of the difference in when I'm doing these live versus when I do a video. Where do you watch live football like Miami Dolphins? I don't, but I watch live football like Buffalo Bills, especially when they're kicking the fins off of the Dolphins. Squish the Fish. I watch that on Kodi. Kodi is an app that you can put on your Roku, or you can put it on your Fire Stick. I have Fire Stick. I put it on there. You don't have to buy those in the US. You can buy them right here. They're about the same price. Why am I getting a call? That was our friend Alex. Saying I was getting a call. So anyway, you download Kodi, and then from there you go to the internet and you say, what are the top add-ins for live NFL sports? And you take a look and you just pick one and you download it. And then when it's time for football, you just go in and click on it. It'll have a whole bunch of sports, and you choose live, and then you choose NFL, and then you choose the game that's playing, and there you go. You watch it. It's been working fine for me for forever. I'm going to be in Bucaramanga next weekend for 3 days. Any barrios that are good for walking around and enjoying an afternoon, an evening with someone. Barrios that aren't overrun with traffic. Well, see, you had to throw that in. We were doing fine up until then. Turtle, are you still on? He's become the Bucaramanga expert since he's living there. What's the park? Pio? Is that it? Parque Pio? That area is nice. You can go to the Cachique Mall. That's kind of cool. The mall itself is, you might as well say that's a barrio. You could spend some hours there having a good time. I love their it's kind of like a food court, but it's like an adult place. It's unlike others that I've seen. It's kind of unique. San Pio. Pio. Okay, yeah, so that's pretty cool. That's actually Turtle Stomping Grounds. But that was my favorite area as I walked around Bucaramanga. That area was my favorite area. And if I were to live there, it would be somewhere probably within 4 or 5 blocks of that park. Probably not up the hill, but you know, within a few blocks of that park. I like a lot. There's a lot happening. But every main road's going to have a lot of traffic. Not traffic like Medellin, but you know, traffic. We're starting to get overrun with traffic here in Armenia. I swear, almost daily it gets worse. But it's still not anywhere near as bad as Pereira or Manizales mid-afternoon. It gets pretty bad there too. All right. Do we have any other questions? We're coming up on our time. Did you find what I was talking about with coffee interesting at all? Was it boring? Do you want to know any more about that? I mean, we do call it coffee time, but it's called coffee time because I have coffee every morning. But then the ironic thing is, the best time to do the coffee times is after, when I like to have my coffee. So today it's ice water. I don't know, maybe only once or twice in the 5 years I've been doing coffee time, I've actually had coffee. It's usually some sort of juice or water. Okay, last call for questions. I'm curious to know what you think about the stuff I did today. Feel free to email me any comments, constructive criticism. I've gone an entire week without any nasty trolls sending me messages, which was very pleasant. I was happy for that. And to all you trolls that are out there, there's not many, but I get probably 3, 4, 5 in a month, and they can get downright nasty. And so the fact that you gave me a week, maybe you thought that I wasn't feeling well or something, so you backed off. I tell you, I really appreciate it. It was nice to have the break. Of course, I hate to disappoint you in that most of the time they make me laugh and they never really upset me. But hey, I'll try to pretend, I'll try to give you a little gratification. Okay, whoop. So that's my email. Feel free to send me any kind of comments. 72 in Cuenca, 75 Fort Myers, Florida. Yeah, what do we? It's 77 degrees here. I was guessing at 78. It was probably 75 or 6 when I said that. But it is gonna be a warmer than typical day, and we are gonna run up to about 81. Not too cold in Cuenca, not too hot in Florida. Yeah, there are days where it's beautiful weather in Cuenca. The problem is it's not often enough. What can you tell me about Giron? The Giron in Ecuador or the Giron near Bucaramanga? I only went through Giron if I ever make it back on my second trip. I actually have plans to stop there and check it out, but I can't really tell you anything about it. But if you go, you tell me about it. I'm a coffee snob, so yes, keep up the coffee talk. If you're a real coffee snob, if you don't know about him, there's a YouTube guy who's like the top barista in the world. He's won international awards. He has very entertaining and extremely informative videos on coffee. He's all about coffee. And his name is James Hoffman. If you don't know him, never seen him, But if you want to know simple things like, how do you grind coffee? What do you look for? How, if I don't have an expensive machine, is there a way I can do it? Does temperature matter? How does temperature affect the coffee? What can I do about that? Everything that you want to know, from a very high level to the very basics, how to appreciate, how to learn to enjoy coffee. The guy's awesome. I don't watch him all the time, but I went through a period a few years ago, mostly to learn, and I watched a lot of stuff that he had. But I find him entertaining, and every once in a while, something will pop up of his, and I'll watch it. Recently, there was one where it was measuring the caffeine content in various countries, and there was Japan and Korea and England, the United States, and I think there was one other. And the United States had basically double the caffeine content from everywhere else. Okay, well, we're at an hour in less than a minute. So my favorite way to make coffee is French press. I have 2 French presses, one for me, and then I have a larger one if I have company. I have 2 mocha pots, same thing, a little one, and then I got a bigger one if I have company. And I have a espresso machine, cheap one, but I have one. Good morning from Montreal. We're getting ready to sign off, but good morning to you. And so that's it. There's my email. Please send me some constructive criticisms or opinions. It'll only take you a minute. I really appreciate it. Kind of helps guide me as we go. Been doing this for a long time, but I kind of need a little direction once in a while. I'll see you next week.